What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Pick Swap Podcast. I'm James Birrane. I'm here with Sean Bernard. What's up, Sean?
Not much. I'm ready for my supermax extension, so I'm waiting on
Yeah,
that offer.
yeah, me too, man. I'm waiting for that that contract to slide across my desk. Get a call from my agent. I don't know. Maybe I have
Yeah.
to just play tennis with Daryl Morey. Then I'll get the I'll get the contract extension. But let's go right into that, man. One of the more I feel like wholesome, happier days as a Sixers fan. And
hmm
it immediately brought me back to the first day I was sitting at the table with my dad after Embiid got hurt, like that first time when we found out he was going to miss the second season. And my
hmm
dad was like, here we go, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I trust it. I believe in him. He's going to be all right. And I was right. I was right. I think a lot of us are right. And Embiid gets his massive deal. So what do you think about it? Obviously, we're all happy for him, but let me just hear your take on this Embiid Supermax.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I really do. It's so cool the way we've just watched this guy like develop from like the young kid, the kind of immature little guy that
Yeah.
came in the league and blossom into like the human being and the basketball player that he's become and just everything with that. And he's awesome. I love him. Give him all the money in the world. And shout out to him doing it without an agent, which I also think is very cool, and earn himself a little extra cut that way by doing that. Super
Yeah.
intelligent guy, and just like I'm happy. I want him to retire here. I hope he never leaves, and it doesn't seem like he has plans on it. So I can't complain at all.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to go. There's a lot to be said about a guy that is so adamant about being here and staying here. It feels like it's been a long time, just in general, out of all the Philadelphia sports, where we've had a guy that's been so well loved by the city, and that feeling goes back the other way too. I mean, he mentioned it multiple times, like I want to be here, I want to retire here, I want to bring a championship here.
hmm
And Embiid is the city. He is this. He is the pulse of this city. He is the heartbeat, and it makes me really happy to see him here. So tell me if you're up to date on this, what this does to the cap going forward. Is it back heavy?
It's percentage based, so it with like I believe it's 35% of the salary cap each year. So if the cap increases for like the 2025 season or whatever it was with that, his number that he gets will get cut. As it is, it's at a 4-year, $196 million contract, which is already a hefty chunk. But so it's structured connected to the cap as far as how much you get, which is pretty standard for these type of deals and for superstars. So, but yeah, so it works out.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And I mean, it doesn't handcuff them too much. I mean, they're already basically stuck as they are in terms
hmm
of just how much money they have wrapped up in the starting five. But I feel like Embiid's going to do whatever he can. Obviously, he has been for a while. He's just been um, he's just been as good as someone could be for this city. I'm very
Yeah.
happy. So let's move on. We talked about last week. We talked about a lot of the younger guys in the summer league and everything, and we saw Rayjon Tucker get waived this past week to make room for Grant Riller and also for Charles Bassey. Let's go to Bassey first. What do you think about that whole situation just in general?
Yeah, very interesting just the way it played out. And just I mean, I guess props to his agent for kind of pulling the strings and making that happen, but I don't think I've ever really seen the way Bassey's definitely seemed to have the agent definitely valued Bassey very high and his worth. And just first off, interesting with the Sixers even like buying into the second round like that and just them being the only team to do that, then getting those two picks. They're obviously stashing Petrovic, keeping him overseas, and then Bassey with most second round picks are like there's no guarantee that you're making a roster with that. And then to have kind of the stones to sit out summer league, take his lumps and just keep talking. And the way I was kind of looking at that is there had to be some sort of kind of gentleman's agreement behind the scenes, which I guess it turns out that there must have been. But when Tucker was waived, I definitely thought the second two-way deal would be going to Bassey and that they would find a way to keep him there. But they gave him it looks like he's going to get a full deal. I don't think it's officially finalized yet. It's some sort of cap issue that they're kind of juggling and making work for Tolliver, which timing has something to do with. But bottom line is he is going to be on the real roster, whether it's a 1-year or multi-year deal is kind of what's holding it up. And I mean, I love the extra center depth. I like what he brings as a player. He's a great shot blocker. He's shown improvement as a shooter. Averaged 17.6 points, 11.6 rebounds, 3.1 blocks per game. He also has the outside shot. He shot 31.9% on 2.1 attempts in college, and apparently shot the lights out in at his workout with the Sixers, which got a lot of buzz with them there. Shares the same trainer as Joel Embiid, which I do think matters. And I'm a big Drew Hanlon fan, so I'm a fan of that. I like that he's on the roster. The depth is great, and I do think he's an exciting piece. I wish we got to see him play in summer league.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I feel like he was one of those guys that I was really looking forward to seeing, and he was a high school standout though.
Yeah,
I'm remembering correctly, he was a big name during his years in high school. Where did he go?
Western Kentucky for college.
No, I
And
meant in high school.
I don't know if that. I want to
I
say he was
forget. Yeah,
an IMG guy, but I could be wrong on that. I'm gonna find that real quick.
I'm looking it up.
Mhm.
He's DeSales and St. Anthony
Okay.
Catholic.
Okay.
But he's definitely an interesting guy. They seem to be doing a lot with kind of diversifying the backups, like backup bigs.
Yeah,
We've talked a lot about Paul Reed probably getting a lot of minutes this year, and dude, the more he plays, the more I'm excited for Paul Reed. But Bassey does bring an interesting kind of different aspect. He's more of a traditional stretch big than I think Paul Reed is, because Reed is just kind of a, like we say, he's a very quirky player.
yeah,
There's not many guys like him. But with a guy that can space the floor the way that he had, it doesn't surprise me that he is coming in on a full contract, a regular contract, and not on a two-way. I guess in that situation, but it does kind of surprise me that it was negotiated the way that it was. I was very surprised to see
definitely.
it go that way. And so is that like, because I feel like sometimes that gets played out as like a bad thing or a bad look for a player.
Mhm.
But do you think it was kind of both sides saying like, let's hold off on this and let's do this later while we figure things out, or was it just Bassey, or was it just the Sixers?
I mean, I think the first hold up. I think obviously the his agent was prioritizing getting him a guaranteed deal off the rip and
Okay.
not into a two-way. And I think it's even possible that he had said from the start that he wouldn't accept a two-way or anything like that. And then I think on the Sixers end that they were sitting back and waiting a little and seeing if like a Simmons deal did come into like did happen and they needed to send out more players, then that's a roster spot that like he can sign the contract for. Whereas like in the scenario now, Anthony Tolliver is the guy that will be getting cut once it becomes official and Bassey's taking that spot. And not that that's like a major in the long run deal, but still like a roster move that has to be made. So I think there was a lot of kind of moving parts behind the scenes that allowed it to happen. But it's definitely interesting kind of the shift in leverage is so fascinating to me when you think about like this is a guy who like again, he was the 50th overall pick. Like there's never any guarantees for that spot, and he still
Yeah.
sat out summer league, got his bag, and got his spot. So I guess shout out to him, but definitely interesting how it played out.
Yeah, that was the biggest surprise for me. So with Tolliver leaving, this is another thing that another kind of revelation coming into this season. Last year, there was a huge focus on vets,
Mm-hmm.
getting guys in the building that have been there, done that, that are going to be able to help kind of foster the culture here with the Sixers. Now with Dwight gone, Anthony Tolliver gone, obviously you bring Danny Green back. The old heads in the room are kind of gone, aside from Danny Green. Is that something that you make a story out of, or is that just kind of the way things go, and they're kind of now trying to stack talent rather than vets? Is that important, unimportant, a story or not?
Yeah, I mean it's great for all like the rah rah veteran presence, all that. But the bottom line is you got to be able to ball. And like when you think about like Tolliver was not a guy that can make a positive impact on this roster. Dwight, there were moments where he was a detriment to the team with that, and just upgrading from a talent perspective is definitely more important because as we like has been proven. The team is still a notch below in that category, so you can't kind of sacrifice that. And we're not in a position where we can, and there's certainly teams that still is important for. But I think the Sixers kind of addressing that and prioritizing just talent over, I guess, leadership or veteran or experience, however you want to put it, I think is the right decision at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like there's obviously the vet presence is an important piece to all of this. But also, like, how much of that can you rely on, especially given now that, like, Tobias Harris is a vet, even Embiid is a vet,
Yeah.
Seth Curry's just turned 31, Danny
Happy birthday.
Green, happy birthday, Seth Curry. Ben Simmons is 24, like 25. Like, these guys aren't, like, they're not, like, little kids anymore. It's not
Right.
like, it's not like putting vets on the Charlotte Hornets and saying like, we got to foster LaMelo Ball and all these guys. Like these are NBA players. These are all-stars. These are guys that have been around the block a few times. So I don't think it's too much of a big deal. I feel like there was a little bit of buzz about, especially when I think Danny Green mentioned it coming back, and he was kind of like, it's kind of weird being the oldest guy in the room now.
Yeah.
But that's the way it goes. So moving on from there, obviously we talked about Tucker being moved, Anthony Tolliver being moved. Which do you want to talk about Tucker for a little bit? Because
Yeah, sure.
we talked about him a little bit, being disappointing in the summer league a little bit. Do you think he sticks around with the Blue Coats, or do you think he ends up elsewhere?
I think it's pretty likely he's back with the Blue Coats, and Tucker's a guy I like genuinely like really like as a
Yeah,
person and the character that he has and just that. But just basketball wise, I do think this was like the right call decision, and there's something that's just not quite there for him. And even like when you look at the numbers and like he's a 20 point per game scorer in the G League, and he has all the athleticism in the world and everything, but just kind of connecting the pieces and finding like a real NBA role is kind of where he struggled. And I would love it. I'd be super happy for him if he gets a chance somewhere else, if it is on a two-way deal or a bottom of the roster somewhere. I like that would be great for him. But I think it's pretty likely that he is back in the G League next year and still hustling for that. He's a guy I could see going overseas and doing extremely well there, and I would respect that as well. But I do think it was the right call by the Sixers, and I think Riller has a lot more NBA upside than Tucker does.
yeah. So, I mean, we've always been pretty big fans of Rayjon Tucker, but like you said, there's really just there's something missing.
Yeah,
He just hasn't seemed to put it together. And again, we talked about it a little bit before. He's not a spring chicken anymore. He's a guy that's been around a little bit too long to continue coddling him. So hopefully he does find a place somewhere else. And this roster is like they're now setting it up for it to be 15 deep of guys that can come off the bench and play. And if
hmm
Tucker's not that guy, and they can make space for a guy like if with the two-way of Riller. We talked a lot about Riller last year before the
yeah,
draft. He was a guy that they mentioned at 21. Thankfully, we got Maxey instead, which is obviously a pretty big difference there. But with Riller coming in, where do you see his role being? Obviously, he's going to be playing a lot with the Blue Coats,
yeah.
but they like him enough to bring him on the two-way. So, what do you think he brings to both the Blue Coats and the Sixers?
I think he's a guy that, again, a lot is still kind of weighing with the Ben Simmons move and what's looming over with that. So if there is kind of an emptying the bench move where we're trading a bunch of guys when we talk about Maxey, Isaiah Joe, B-Ball Paul, all these guys, like this is a guy I think could transition into like a real deal and be coming in off the bench kind of like presence and serving those kind of minutes. I like his game a lot. He's a super easy guy to root for. He's a little bit small. He's kind of a combo guard type player with certainly a score first player and just great shot creation. He's exciting. Went to Charleston, I believe, and
Yep.
last year in G League averaged 13.1 points, 3.5 assists, 1.7 rebounds, and he shot 46.2% from three on 4.7 attempts, which is pretty crazy. So that shooting's awesome, and hopefully that translates as well. I know there's the tendency for guys to come and forget how to shoot here, but
Yep.
I'm optimistic that like this is a good match. And like again, as much as I love Tucker, I definitely think there's a lot more upside to his game.
Yeah, I agree. I want to let's start petitioning to end the idea that everyone forgets how to shoot when they come over here. I just wanted to stop. Like I feel like every time it happens, someone comes over. We're like, well, they might not shoot as well.
Yeah,
I want that to just be. I mean, it's true. It's true. It has been true, but hopefully going forward is just over because I can't deal with that. The impending. Oh, they might never like when GR3 came over and it took them 14 games to make a three,
yeah,
and we're all like, what is going on? It took him 2 weeks to get here, and then it took him 2 more weeks to make a jumper, and it was just a whole ordeal. But with Riller shooting 46%, like that doesn't just happen. You know what I
right.
mean? That's not just something that happens overnight. This
hmm
guy starts and stops like remembering how to shoot. So any guard that can space the floor is a guard that the Sixers could use. And if it comes down to it, if something happens, he's needed. I think that he is a nice fill-in piece and a guy like that people were pretty high on coming into last year's draft and could potentially be a guy that is part of this rotation later on. How old is he? I feel like he's a little bit older though.
Yeah, he was a 4 year guy. I want to say 24. I'm gonna double check on
Yeah,
that real quick. But he was a 4 year guy,
he's 24,
24. So it's still not like old, but he's
young.
definitely a guy that needs to be hitting his stride now.
Well, and maybe that's what they're banking on. 1 year of getting him involved, getting him ready, getting him prepped. I was surprised that the Hornets walked away from him that quickly. Are you?
Yeah, they have a lot of guards there, and you think like
True.
LaMelo's obviously the focal point that they're building around. LiAngelo Ball might be the spot that he opened up for, and
Yeah.
so interesting there. But I do think this is a much like better opportunity for him in terms of carving out a role on the team, and just I love LaMelo and think he's a phenomenal player, but he's not the easiest guy to be a complimentary guard to, and
True.
with that, so I don't think I wouldn't say he got an unfair shot there, but it definitely wasn't a clean path for him, which I think he does have that here.
Yeah, for sure. And I
Mhm.
mean, there are a lot of guards stacked up in this organization as well. So, but again, I feel like they are what they're doing is they are diversifying this roster, and the same thing with Bassey and trying to find guys that fit a role that they don't already have. And Riller, I think, really does fit that. Um, just a guy that will it can run the point, can play the two, will shoot the lights out, that kind of thing. You need those guys on the bench. And again, we've talked about it before. Shooting comes at a premium in this league, and you can never have enough of it. So I like the Riller signing there. I think it could be something or it could be nothing. But I think if it ends up being something, it'll be a good something rather than a bad something. So
Mhm.
it's the most like generic way I can put it, but I feel like that's the best way to say it. So looking at the schedule though, the schedule was released just the other day. The Sixers open up against the Pelicans in New Orleans on October 20th. It's hard to even try to like quantify what all of this means right now. We have no idea what everything's going to look like in a month and a half, 2 months. What do you make of this? Do you even take this seriously? Do you even start looking at how much have you looked into it? Like, no Christmas Day game again. Is that something like that's an argument that a lot of people get? And let's before we even get into the schedule, what do you think about the Christmas Day ordeal?
Yeah, I do think it's crazy that like this it does feel like and I think this is fair. Like I don't think this is wrong in the NBA's part, but I do think the Sixers are looked at as like a notch below the premier teams and they're not quite the marquee market that I think they should be and that they should be stepping into and frankly should be just given the media market and just the quality of team that they should be. But yeah, once again they're missed out. I still like the concept of just kind of that being a worse slept on factor and like a under the radar kind
Yeah.
of as long as the team buys into that and we'll see. Like again, I feel like we've said this before and it hasn't worked out. So but I'm not shocked by it. But there's teams worse than the Sixers that got a look for that, which is kind of disappointing. But it is kind of on the players like perspective. I think it's a win-win whether you play or not, just based
Yeah.
on like it's not the biggest deal in the world to be stuck with your family on Christmas, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know, and I feel like that's part of the argument as fans too. Is like I always look forward to the Christmas Day games. It's something like I'm not always fully paying attention to, but it's always on the TV for me. The games are just going on, and I've been enjoying those games since I was a kid. So
Mhm.
it's always nice having the Sixers play, and when they have played, they've always played well on Christmas. Um, Blowing out the Bucks at home was like one of my
That was
favorite
awesome.
memories. It was such a fun day. It made my Christmas day so much better. But it is a win-win. I feel like not having to pay attention or try to be an analyst or try to digest a game throughout Christmas Day is definitely something I don't like relish too much. But I do enjoy the game on Christmas Day. But aside from that, looking at the schedule, are there any marquee matchups you're looking at? Anything you're kind of excited for a stretch? I know in the second half of their season they have the Heat, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks, and the Suns in a 5-game stretch, I believe.
Mhm.
So there are times like they're down in the valleys. That happens, but is there anything else you're looking at specifically?
Yeah, there's a couple tough stretches that I guess like or it's just I mean the bottom line we have to play everybody we have to get through
Yeah,
it and I do think there's too much noise just made around what the schedule exactly is and when the games are who we play back to backs everything in general you just got to take care of business do your thing. I'm also super over the concept of just like I understand why it was in place last year and the reasoning behind it, and seating is certainly important. I don't want to like poo poo it too much, but I'm very over like the regular season is fairly not meaningless in my mind, but the whole prospect of it should just be being at our best in playoffs and focusing on that and getting through it and making sure we're peaking then. And I really don't care if we have the number one record in the regular season this year and just you can see it every year how like the Bucks we just saw learn this lesson how they were the best team in the regular season for 2 straight years. went and took a step back from regular season and how they looked, and weren't even really looked at as like that great of like contender this season. But they added pieces that in the postseason work. And think about how much Drew Holiday helped that team, and that's a guy that they overpaid to get for that reason. And I think the Sixers should take a lesson from that and just building toward the postseason and finding guys that are battle ready to win a series. And like, to me, the biggest, like, we should not be worried about. A lot of this comes on to just protecting Joel Embiid and that kind of thing. But for me, I'm still looking ahead to the playoffs, and the regular season isn't that intriguing to me.
Yeah, I agree. So to go back a little bit, I'm a person, I guess, growing up as a Sixers fan in the way that they were for a lot, like a large portion of my life growing up, is they just weren't good.
Mm-hmm.
So the playoffs weren't in my mind ever. So I love the regular season. I love the fact that they play 3-4 times a week, and I can sit down and watch and enjoy a game like all the time. And with like, I mean, I just enjoy basketball. So knowing there's 82 games and I can sit down and watch all of them, I love all of that. So like, not that they should be making sure Embiid plays, 75 of those 82. Like, absolutely not. Like, if he needs rest, whatever they need to do to keep him healthy is absolutely what they should do. I think that they should be focusing on what makes them uncomfortable during the season, instead of just kind of flying by the seat of their pants once they get to the playoffs, and never having been through any sort of, pressure, whether that's making sure Simmons is off the ball or whatever it is. Like, just putting all of their guys in positions where they have to work through uncomfortable situations in games that obviously they matter. Obviously, the regular season matters to a degree, but putting them in positions where they're going to be in the playoffs, knowing that once it comes down to the nitty gritty, they're not, freaking out. And it seems like there's been times that that's happened throughout the last couple of years, and who knows how it goes. But I'm excited. I'm just really excited. It's kind of building back up the fact that they're going to start within, the next couple months, and just gearing up mentally for that long haul of the season. I always just end up looking really forward to the regular season, regardless of what they look like, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And when we talk about like protecting Joel Embiid, I think is like needs to be the top priority pretty much for everything in the regular season, because it is as simple as if he's not at his best in the postseason, the Sixers aren't true contenders. And we saw him do what he did on a torn meniscus last year. But if he's coming in healthy, that just makes so much of a difference. And making sure that's the case needs to be a priority. I understand it's not easy, but like looking back on last year, Embiid played in 7 sets of back-to-backs, 7 back-to-back games, like different back-to-backs, which is insane in my mind. And he should never be doing that given his history. And like, I understand he already gets criticism for missing too many games, but to me, like, I don't care. Like, I'm resting this guy more than we already do. And I don't care if it's pampered, and I get we're paying him all this money, but I want him at his best when it matters most. And we haven't fully ever had that.
Yeah. And you're not paying him to be the best player in game 47. Like, you're paying him to be the best player in game 98, which is the 16th game, which they should be winning in the playoffs. Like, that's what you're doing. That's what you're paying him for. I mean, some people will argue about the fans and whatever, and I'm sure Joel wants to play as much as he possibly can. But again, we've talked. It's been a thing for a long time. You have to protect him from himself a lot of times. I'm sure that he wants to be a part of everything. But again, that's kind of another factor to them trying to play through uncomfortable situations, and they have to learn to play through other people, and other people have to learn how to be the focal point or learn how to take a back seat. That's all part of growing as a team and growing as a player. So I agree with you. I definitely think it's way more important to be fully healthy and mentally ready to go after game 82. But I feel like last year they were proving something. Embiid wanted the MVP, and they had a great year, and they were the number 1 seed. And it's like, okay, now that chip is off your shoulder. Now you had to focus on the next one, and the next one is winning playoff series, getting through the second round, for Christ's sake, and making an actual run, because I feel like we haven't seen an actual run. Everything's been cut short. So I definitely agree with you. I think it's time for them to kind of not refocus, but definitely just change the focus from the long view, or from the short view to the long view. And it felt like that was partially what they were doing last year, but then, who knows what even ends up happening. But no, I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, and it's certainly a failure that they haven't made it past the second round at this point. And as nice as you can chop it up or say in any ways, like, it's embarrassing that we haven't made any progress in that, especially last year, and especially with the Hawks, and that like it was looked at as such like a clean path to the playoffs, which it never is in the NBA. But just not winning that series is something that certainly it sticks with it, and I still feel the sour taste from that. It's crazy how quick the season feels like it's already coming up, and the questions that are still unanswered. I know Simmons is like still going to be the conversation point, but I'm beginning to kind of think about it's seeming more and more likely that he will be back next year and that he does start. Do you think it's like, I don't think it's as seamless to start the season and build back his value as like the concept of him improving his value, staying with the Sixers and finding a deal after that seems like great in theory. I don't think in practice it's as easy as that. I want to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely not nearly as easy as you think. And
Yeah.
the regular season is a marathon. And we've talked like this is not a new concept for NBA teams or NBA execs. Like everyone goes to a roller coaster of a season. It's very rare for teams like you have the 2016 Warriors, but even their season ended poorly. And like you have the 72-10 Bulls. Like there's few and far between examples of teams that have just coasted and everyone's looked great and there haven't been any problems and then they end up winning it all. Like that just doesn't happen. There's going to be ups and downs. Every team's going to have ups and downs. And you know, the Sixers are trying to build something that's going to win them a championship, but there's 30 other teams that are doing the same thing. And like, if you're looking at the Trailblazers specifically and Damian Lillard, if he, which he hasn't like made any sort of formal request to be removed from that team, they're going to do everything they can to make sure that team competes. And, you know, they're going to give Chauncey Billups a chance. They're going to give that roster another chance for whatever reason, I guess. Like the Warriors are going to have a chance. Whoever else, all these teams are going to have a chance. And I don't think anyone else is really thinking about it as much as I think Sixers fans or the Sixers are thinking about building up value. Because at the end of the day, I personally think, and you can weigh in on this as well, if you're not getting a top 10 player, it's not worth it. Like it's not worth it to move Ben. We said this last time. It's not worth it to move Ben for pieces. It's not worth it to move Ben for picks or Malcolm Brogdon and picks or Buddy Hield and picks or CJ McCollum. Like that's not worth it for anybody. At the end of the day, Ben Simmons was an all-star. He's a defensive player of the year candidate. There's obvious flaws to his game and things that need to be fixed. What's more valuable to your team at this point is to try to optimize Ben and not try to revamp a bunch of younger players in Andrew Wiggins and James Wiseman and then try to move them for someone else and move them for someone else. I think they got through this offseason with the idea that there could be a move made. There wasn't. And now it's time to just focus on what is important. And what's important is winning basketball games. Try to do what's best. Try to put yourself in a position to do that as best as you can. So to me, I think I definitely agree with you. It's not seamless. It's not like everyone else is thinking, oh, he's going to be on the roster. And then 4 weeks from now, a superstar is going to become available and Ben Simmons will be on the chopping block and they'll swap and then it'll be totally fine. Like that's not how basketball works. That's not how the NBA works. And I think genuinely, I think if he survives until October 20th, I think he stays this season. I think that they give this team a shot. And I mean, I don't know. I personally enjoy that. I know that you're on the other side of the fence on that, but
Yeah.
I do agree with you there.
I mean, a couple things there. I mean, first off, I think there's pretty much no chance that Simmons is in the long-term future of this team. Just given like I can't see just running it back. Like to me, it's just the definition of insanity at this point. And just we're trying it again and trying it with these different parts and just like maybe there needs to be a bigger solution here. And I definitely think that's the case. That being said, I agree with we can't take pennies on the dollars. And if we do mess up this trade, the process is over, that we ruined everything. And frankly, there's a chance that it already is, that we're already in a bad spot. And I also am okay with the concept, which I know you're not for this, is a deal that gets us closer to that eventual superstar. And for me, that is kind of like a more of a Spurs type package, like a Dejounte Murray and 4 first-round picks type deal, which is still like a hefty pull for that. And if that's even on the table or anything like that. But I do think like it's a pretty safe bet in the NBA that within the next year and a half, there's going to be a significant superstar that is free and looking for it. And when you have Joel Embiid and when you have a win now contender, like when we can throw 4 first-round picks, 5 first-round, whatever, along with like a couple young guys in that. And when you think about like the Sixers are loaded with young talent. When we think even beyond Maxey, Thibault, Isaiah Joe, Paul Reed, like, these are all guys that like can add like or at least intriguing players in a package when you're putting something together. And like I don't think that there's very many teams. I guess the Warriors are the closest thing that can kind of compete with that when you think about Kuminga and Moody and the pieces they have, Wiseman, guys that they can add together. But I'm okay with kind of a step back to step forward if that's like the best way possible. I just think there's no way like this guy, all that's been said all offseason is all the drama that's been going on, and they're like everything. I can't see like him getting in and it just like clicking and everything being fine, and that there's no awkwardness there, and just like that awkwardness like between players and between that will translate on court with like when this is a guy that's supposed to be running our whole offense and that. And I get like everything, he looks great in all the open gym runs and all that, but I just like I refuse to buy in that like this long-term vision is still there even after just what we saw in the playoffs year in and year out.
Yeah, I do disagree a little bit. Let's touch on the the annual
open
Ben
gym.
Simmons open gym.
Yeah, unreal.
It cracks me up, man. Like to me, first of all, I love it. It's frustrating as hell, but it honestly makes me laugh a lot. It makes me feel like it makes me feel like it's just a big old joke at this point. But like people lose their minds. People really just lose their minds. And at first it's you can't be at Wimbledon, you should be in the gym. And then it's don't post pictures of yourself in the pool, you should be in the gym. And then he's posting in the gym and everyone's like, you suck, shoot the ball. And then it's there's a video of him shooting and everyone he's back on the cross being crucified again. So the dude can't win. I realize, I understand it all, but he can't do anything right. But to go back, I really don't at this point, with as much as we've talked about it being win now, I think taking a step back, regardless of the trade package, is counterintuitive. I think you either get the star or you don't. I think Ben Simmons' value throughout his career so far, in his short career so far, I think is more than whatever 4 first-round picks. And while I do love DeJounte Murray, he's one of my favorite non-Sixers. What does he bring? What do those guys bring? And I understand it's to another potential move, but what if that falls through? What if that doesn't work? What if you get these guys and you're stashing them and then it doesn't work and then you're trying to figure something out? You can't do that. You can't do that to Embiid. You can't do that to Tobias Harris. You can't do that to Danny Green. Your promise now is we're going to try to win a championship. So if the deal is there to get Damian Lillard, to get whoever else, what other superstar you might think is available, that's one thing. I would digest that and I would deal with that and I would move on. If they were to do something that's like, oh, we're going to trade for, Buddy Hield and 3 firsts and a pick swap, I would be miserable and I would be very upset with that. Like personally, I think that's very counterintuitive, just for the situation that they're sitting in right now. And if you're thinking in a year, you can get these guys now, and then in a year, Dame might be available. Like there you go. You just picked up and scooped up a big old year and tossed it in the trash, and you didn't do anything, and you got way worse. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's significantly easier to get a deal for these superstars when you look at like the type of deal that this is that this is a team giving up on their star to rebuild, and I think it's significantly easier to get a team to buy into that when you're tossing them a ton of picks and young players versus Ben Simmons, because while he is a very good player and very talented, he's a very kind of niche player in what he can do and what he's good at. He's very good at it, but he's not a like diverse, like he's very specific in the way he plays and the way he can. And like, that's just not attractive to all teams. And there's simply like players that he cannot play alongside, and I'm not saying that is fully the case here, but we're certainly running into issues. And real quick to the first off, the Chris Johnson video where they're doing the pick and roll and the guy steps over on the screen. It's just To me, that was,
Yeah.
and first off, I agree with you that he can't win on whatever he posts with that, but
He
that
didn't
drove me
even post
absolutely.
that one. It wasn't even him.
Yeah, but to me, like, there's no NBA player in the universe that is going over on a screen on Ben Simmons ever. Like, nobody's scared he's pulling that three,
He's a
and just
big guard.
nobody's scared he's pulling that. And then just like the hype up in the background, like going nuts, like who can do this and stuff. Like every single NBA player can do that. Every single one of them can do that. And just
Yeah.
to me, and I understand like this is kind of a hype up video and not necessarily what he's like really
Yeah,
doing.
actually working on. Yeah.
Yeah, actually working on. But to me, it's
Hey,
very
he was
much
with
like,
Maxey though. He was with Maxey.
yeah, I mean, they're both clutch sport guys, both Chris Johnson guys, and Maxey certainly gained a ton. And I've loved what I've seen from him and from his off-season workouts. The Maxey off-season workouts are the new Ben Simmons workouts for me, for sure.
But the Maxey ones get all the love, and then
Yeah.
Ben
Oh,
posts the same ones, and everyone's like, "Shut the hell up!
well,
Get
I
back in
buy
the
into
game."
Maxey applying it
Yeah.
because we've seen it. We've
Yeah.
already seen it. And just like even that step back three that he's got and that little like cut, like we saw that in summer league. And just the thing that's so frustrating with Ben is I can see in the open gym all the time. I can see these clips all the time. When it's not there in the game, it simply doesn't matter. And just applying it is such a valuable skill. And just like the stubbornness that has in there is still what drives me nuts. And I refuse to buy in that will change this year.
Hey, sometimes leaders are younger. Sometimes maybe Maxey is the guy that needs to be there with him and a vote of confidence. I know a lot of times those guys like Maxey is one of those guys. He just has the charisma. He has the ability. He has the confidence to bring out confidence in other people. And who knows? Not that that's I'm not trying to say, but I mean, he's working on his game. He's doing what he's got to do. He posted a picture. He was very happy to be leaving LA, apparently, getting in his car and coming back to the East Coast. And he's apparently getting back with the Sixers very shortly. So I'm not upset at all. I know a lot of people have a pretty big problem with that, but it is what it is. I feel like at this point, and he's gonna do what he's gonna do, and hopefully, I'm just hoping really that this coming season there is pressure, and pressure in a good way. Like I feel like the pressure got kind of taken off of his shoulders and never really put back on, but it was just then the spotlight was different. And I don't know, man. It's really hard to speculate at this point. It's hard to say what's happening, what isn't happening, who's doing what and where and what time. So, but personally though, like, and also I wanted to go back really quick. When you talked about like the awkwardness between these guys, like they're grown men, bro. Like they're grown men, and I know that this is their job, but this is their job. Like this is what they come into work to do. I don't think Embiid has thought about it at all. I think that as much as we talked about Ben Simmons today is probably how long Embiid has thought about Ben Simmons this entire offseason. Like he's got shit to do. He's got a family. He's got work to do himself. He's got rehab to do. Like I think everyone is kind of coming into this with, we need to win. Whoever's here is here. Whoever's not is not. We're just going to go win.
Do you put any weight on the Doc Rivers like criticisms like following that game? And Embiid obviously did it too, but to me the Rivers is more telling.
I hated it personally.
Yeah.
I hated it. I hated it. One, not that Ben didn't deserve criticism after that game. Obviously he did, but Doc Rivers did too. And for him to coddle Ben all year and never let him feel the pressure of the media, and then after the last game of the season where he screws up pretty badly, then he decides to kind of take the shield away and let Ben take all the arrows. Like that was bullshit to me.
Mm-hmm.
And another reason why I don't like Doc Rivers. But yeah, I mean, I don't read into it too much. I think that they were all very frustrated, obviously, after that game. And I think that I don't think anyone minced words. I feel like that was another reason why I felt not as bad as a lot of people is, we're at rock bottom. We're at the bottom's bottom. Everything that's needed to be said has been said. Now, it's time to put up or shut up. And, even your coach and your best player and your teammate and a guy you've played with for 4 years was like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe at some point you need that. Maybe at some point you need to be like, damn, these people are counting on me and I just severely let them down. So, I mean, I read into it a little bit that Doc decided then to stop being a protector of Ben Simmons when he had been that since he got the job.
Yeah, and that was my issue with it too, is just like the how over the top and protecting him and defending him throughout the entire season, and then to just kind of drop that and just I don't know if he's a championship point guard. I can't answer that question. To
He's not
me,
a point guard.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you can call it whatever you want, but like I agree that that is just not the way to do it, and I don't know
Yeah.
how the relationship between those two is, but to me, it's one thing if you're as critical of him. Again, an issue I've had with Doc straight through is how much more protective he is of Ben versus any other player, and just like I don't understand why when Ben's shooting is criticized, which is certainly a fair criticism, why he just points out all the great passing and defense that he has, which is certainly valid. But when a guy like you critique like Embiid's passing out of the post or something like that, he doesn't bring
He's
up
even critiques like Furkan
yeah,
like heavily, and I'm like, like to me as a guy like, and not that like I'm not doing this to be any sort of way, but like I played point guard in high school. I got screamed at for everything that went wrong. Everything
mhm,
that went wrong. It didn't even matter if it was my fault. It ended up being my fault. Like for Ben, if you're gonna play point guard, like a coach should be extended by their guard, by their point guard.
yeah,
They should be, you know what I mean? And Ben is a very, really high IQ player and a
for sure.
guy that makes like is a very critical factor in a lot of games. That's bottom line. He needs to do things differently. Why, as a coach, are you spending so much time saying, hey, don't worry about it? Don't think about it. It's fine. Like
Yeah,
to me, as a coach, as a guy that wants your team to win, not only win, but win with the players that you have, why in the world are you walking into that gym every day and not saying, here's what you need to do? Here's what you're going to do. Like, you should be pushing him every single day to become the best player. Like, you are failing as a coach if he doesn't shoot next year. If he's not the best player that he can be over the next 2-3 years, like the coach is failing him as well as much as he's failing himself. Genuinely.
mhm,
That's something that I firmly believe in. And like, I've talked to a million coaches in my life that say, if I don't do my job and make my team as best as they can be and make my players as best as they can be, then I've failed as a coach, no matter how many games we win. And to me,
yeah,
that was a huge thing last year. Doc Rivers failed this team as a coach. He obviously opened Embiid's game up by literally letting him do whatever he wants. And Embiid is good enough to just create so much offense and so much production by himself. He's just that good. But in turn, it kind of hindered that. Like that was the only person he really unleashed, I guess is the way what I'm trying to say. And I think
mhm.
I think it's a shame that that's the way it should be. I think Embiid should be able to do basically whatever he wants, but within the standard of everyone else should be unleashed as well. And again, there's so many times where it happens and stretches where it happens with Ben or it happens with Tobias or it happens with Seth Curry. Like, why did it take? Tell me something. Why did it take until the playoffs for Doc to realize that Seth Curry can be a legitimate factor in every facet of the offense? Why does it take him 82 plus games to realize that?
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, Tobias was certainly unlocked more by Doc, and that
Yes,
was
yeah,
the best
true.
we've seen him. And Curry in the playoffs was unreal, and I think a lot of that was him hitting a stride more so than anything, and just like he had a locked in that we hadn't really seen
Like he was
for
called on a lot. Like he was called on a lot more.
yeah, for sure. But I think that also he noticeably stepped it up when Danny Green was not
True.
there, which I think that's
True.
more looks his way. So I think there is a lot of compounding factors there. I do agree with your general. I have a lot of concerns about Doc moving forward.
Yeah.
That I mean it's I understand sticking with him again. It's a tough circumstance to walk in. Like last off seasons, like there's are obstacles you can't prepare for as a coach ever,
Right.
and just like he didn't have a true training camp. He didn't have a real summer league with rookies. Didn't have like the same kind of process bringing. Just like look at Maxey. Maxey didn't have any summer league. He then tested positive for COVID checking into camp. So I think he was there for 2 or 3 days of actual
Yeah.
training camp and then right into practice. And then to be thrown right in like that, this is a guy who should have, from what we know now, should have been a much more
Yeah.
significant part of the team. And just Rivers didn't know exactly what he was getting. And sure, he like a lot of this is to his tendencies of not playing young guys with that, but just like with a real offseason this time, like things could certainly change. And I do think it's fair to give him a second chance, but I definitely need to see growth out of Doc this year.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the mantra with this team, and maybe that is what they're thinking of this year. Like maybe it was like, okay, the big deal didn't come along, it didn't kind of fall into our lap, so we're not going to go do it. Let's let this team get a full season together like they had last year, a full off season, a full training camp, and go from there. And maybe like it or not, maybe that's what the way that they feel and they think, and that could be a genuine factor. Maybe that is what they're doing. So we should wrap it up here. It was definitely, we seem to get in this groove later into the pod. So hopefully we don't see any more Ben Simmons shooting videos before next week.
Please.
But this is hopefully we're counting down the days though. Seriously, we're less than 2 months until Sixers basketball. We're less than 2 months until a Mark Zumoff list Sixers basketball, which is like
sad.
heartbreaking
So
to me.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking to me. They still haven't announced whoever the new guy is going to be, or new girl, whatever works. But I'm definitely excited. I know you're excited. We're keeping the content flowing. Follow us on Twitter at PixelPod. Follow Sean at Sean_Barnard1. Me at JSBirrane17. Check out the YouTube. We're doing some breakdowns and all that stuff. And then obviously Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever it is, at Pixel Podcast. Go check us out. Follow us. Do the whole deal. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you guys.